Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of DABCC-TV. This is the second ever episode of DABCC-TV, and if you're not familiar with DABCC-TV, which you might not be since this is the second ever episode, we're going to be doing a bunch of really neat stuff on this show and based around sort of video content. The first episode, I walked you through, just me and myself, walked you through installing terminal services in Windows Server 2008 with the remote app feature. But today we're going to be doing another sort of way we're going to be releasing content through DABCC-TV, and that is sort of in a video podcast / screencast sort of fashion. I don't know how else to explain it, but what I'm going to be doing is going to be interviewing industry experts and technical experts and having them show off some of these great technologies that are out there. So today I'm extremely happy to have Chaz Setchell. Chaz is one of the senior consultants and one of the main guys over at a company called 2virtualize.com. So definitely check out their site on 2virtualize.com. And so first of all, Chaz, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on DABCC-TV.
Hey, thanks a lot, Doug. Looking forward to doing this and future podcasts with you.
Absolutely. We're going to be doing a bunch of them with Chaz. Chaz is actually an old friend of mine. I've known him for many years, and he's a wonderful guy and very smart. So that being said, let's just dive right into this. Sound good? Okay. So for my first question for you, Chaz, can you just real briefly tell everyone, of course, who are you and, what are you going to be showing us today?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So, I'm Chaz Setchell from 2Virtualize, and I'm a senior consultant here. And I've been working with virtualization since the late 90s, early 2000s, and done a lot of working with Citrix XenServer, VMware, ESX, and other virtualization-related products. Today we're going to discuss XenServer and Zen Center and talk about some of the features within the product, and just to give people an understanding and a better concept of what the product is and maybe how it compares a little bit with VMware. Some of the features are similar and similar naming, so hope to walk you through that and give you a better understanding.
Well, great, Chaz. One of the other interesting aspects of Chaz Setchell is that you're one of the few XenSource certified guys out there, aren't you?
Yeah, I hopped on the bandwagon early and got certified with their version 3 platform and version 4. So, exciting time to be part of the pioneering of virtualization.
Absolutely. Just before we get into this, can you just real briefly describe what was it like for the, for the technicians and engineers out there? Can you just briefly describe maybe the certification process? Was it straightforward? What was that like?
Since Citrix has acquired Zen, I think the process will definitely change, but the existing process was pretty straightforward. Held Zen, that was one of their key go-to-market strategy with XenServer, was to make it simple and easy, and the 10 minutes to Zen marketing is really targeted at that. So instead of having a 3-day VI3 training course, all that was required was actually a 1-day training course. After the end of the training course, you wrote your exam. So pretty straightforward all in all, and 10 minutes to Zen.
Okay, Chaz. So let's just dive into this. Well, right now we're looking at Zen Center, and so can you describe what we're looking at, and maybe give us just an overview of the management console and what we're all looking at on the screen in front of us.
So Zen Center, similar concept as VMware Virtual Center. It is broken down so you can manage multiple Zen servers. As you can see here over to the left, you have your tree. Basically, you set multiple Zen servers in pools, much like VMware's clusters or farms. In this case, we have 2 Zen servers, XenServer 2970 and XenServer 1435. And you can see that we have multiple virtual machines, some Windows, some Linux. As well, these are actually look like CDs or hard disks. They're actually storage repositories. That's what they call them in Zen. It's very straightforward. If you bring up a new system, you can add a new system. by clicking the Add Your Server button, and you simply type in the host name or IP address, put in the username and password, and it'll add the system to the management console. At that point, you can then move it to a pool of your choice. One of the other things that's kind of interesting is once you've configured your pool, any server that you add to that pool will automatically take the configuration settings in that pool. So, for example, at your pool level, if you add an NFS storage repository or an iSCSI repository and configure your networking, your VLANs, once you add that XenServer to that training pool, it'll automatically get that new configuration. You don't have to go to each and every XenServer and manually configure all those things. So a little bit of time saving, very 10 minutes to Zen.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And for those of our listeners or watchers, I guess, not just listening, but actually watching this, they might not be familiar with Virtual Center and VMware. How does that work with VMware? Do they inherit the settings, the cluster, or how does that work?
In most cases, you'll have to configure each VMware server one at a time and add it to the farm. So they definitely have different feature sets between the two products.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so that's just a brief overview of what we're looking at as far as the Zen Center. Actually, I do have one more question for you. With Virtual Center within VMware, that's actually an add-on product that we need to go buy and license and utilize. You don't have to buy Virtual Center. Does Zen Center come with XenSource? Or and if so, is that free, or is it a product you have to purchase? And if so, maybe we're both engineers, so I don't know what anything costs. But is there if there's a cost, do you by chance know what that is?
Yeah, so that is one of the main differences between the products at this time, and obviously subject to change. But at this current time, depending on what licensing platform you choose, whether you start with the free XenServer edition or purchase the Enterprise, Zen Center is included with all products, and there is no additional cost. There's additional features, and anyone looking at Zen to purchase, I would definitely recommend purchasing Zen Enterprise. And the reason for that is you'd get the Zen Motion feature, one of the features that comes to mind, which would be included. Some of the other features aren't included with the freebies at this time. They're more of a single-server product more than a multi-server product. But yeah, so I think Virtual Center lists for about $10K MSRP, and so right away you're saving $10,000 without even talking about the price of a hypervisor.
Wow.
Really good for SMBs to start, and we are seeing larger enterprises adopting as well as Zen starts to reach feature parity with VMware and some of the other platforms.
You bet. And of course, to be fair to VMware out there, VMware has been around longer. Their software is maybe argued is a little bit more robust and feature-rich and definitely more mature. So I don't want people to think we're bashing on VMware at all. DABCC, our goal is just basically to give you the information and compare and contrast. So that's exactly what we're trying to do today. And then maybe as we go through these features too, if there's a feature that is enterprise only, maybe you can just note that for us so people understand what they're getting in the freebie and what, of course, they get, the value they get when they go with the enterprise license. Sound good?
Yeah, I'll try and keep that in mind. And there's on the Zen website, there's a really good comparison that really outlines all that, and we'll maybe add that to the list on the website.
You bet. Okay, so let's dive into the features. Sound good, Chaz? What would you like to show us first?
We'll go through some of the tabs on the screen. As you can see, we are at the very top level of the tree right now, where as I said, you're adding servers. At the top level, you'll see a tab for logs. You can see that everything is logged. You can see that you can filter the logs based on errors, alerts, and actions. And this log is basically saying that we migrated a server 192.168.0.101 from Zen 2970 to 1435, which is a Zen Motion similar to vMotion, and we'll actually demo one of those here later in the session.
Cool, cool. Okay, so there's this green bar on there, and I take it that's a progress bar. In fact, it even says this, so a status bar. So if we were to go into the log as this, for example, the migration that you gave as an example, as that was in progress, we would actually see this green bar moving over. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, that is correct. So from a vMotion perspective, and from if you're converting a VM from local storage up to SAN storage, it takes time to copy an 8 gig file from a local server to an iSCSI share or NFS share. Take 10, 20 minutes, and you'll see that elapse. So it's quite handy to kind of see what the status of a creation of a new VM or a file move. So, yeah, very handy.
Please continue along. What else is there in the Zen Center?
So let's move down to the pool level. So at the pool level, we can see the actual Zen servers themselves. We can see the virtual machines running on these Zen servers. We can see the CPU usage, and we can see the memory used, as well as network.
Cool, and we can also, big red letters, we can see that the Zen tools are not installed, so it'll actually tell us if we're up to date, I imagine, and obviously if the tools are installed or not. So that's sort of a neat little feature right there in front of our face, too.
Yeah, that's very handy. As you know, virtual machines do not perform very well without tools installed. And speaking of tools, you bring up that the tools aren't installed on that virtual machine. Just like VMware tools, XenSource also has their own set of tools that need to be installed and should definitely be installed, especially if you're going to create a template. You want to have the XenSource tools installed prior to creating a template. Otherwise, the user experience isn't that great.
You bet. It really helps when you're just looking at the network card drivers themselves, and of course all the other features of the tools, but just the network card drivers alone is worth the price of admission, so to speak. Let's continue along with the tabs.
Basically, you can change names of a pool. Just type and then click apply. It'll change the name of the actual pool if you wanted to do that. From a storage perspective, this is where we would add iSCSI storage, NFS storage, and we can see the existing storage that are attached and active or not active. I've turned this lab up and down a couple times, and been experimenting with a couple different storage vendors, so we have a little bit of inactivity and activity. But let me just kind of quickly give you an example. By clicking this Add button here, it'll bring up a new storage repository wizard, and I'll walk you through what these are. So a virtual disk storage is basically where you'd store your virtual machines, much like either VMware's VMFS or NFS. So you can select the NFS, and that'll use the NFS version 3 protocol, or iSCSI. The ISO library tab here is a very interesting feature. If you can use a Windows share, have a bunch of ISOs on there, or you can use the NFS volume again. What's interesting about that is when we go to the VM level, you can actually select the DVD drive, and all the ISOs will be in a list, so you don't have to go searching for them and type whack volume name, whatever. They're just there and ready to use. So that's the storage side of it. Very straightforward, very easy. As I said, if you configure the storage here, when you add a new host, it'll automatically configure the other servers. So on to networking. Networking, you can add VLANs, much like VMware. You can see we have multiple NICs here. We have an internal network. So very similar. I will say from a differences perspective between VMware and Zen, today there are a few limitations, like the number of NICs that are supported. VMware just has a little further reach today, and it's a little further ahead from a networking perspective. So very, very easy to add an internal or external network, wizard-driven. And again, we have the same logs at the training level. So that's at the pool level. We can now go down to the actual XenServer level, server 2970 here. We can see the virtual machines running here. Any virtual machine that has a green play button basically means that it's powered on and turned on. And you can see that we have options to shut down, reboot the Zen server itself. You'll basically see the same storage, same networking. Little different tab here is the NICs tab. You can actually see how many NICs are installed in that server. We have 4 NICs installed in this server, and you can see that NIC 0 and NIC 3 are connected. You can see Ethernet name they are, what the vendor is, and what the speed and duplex is. So very nice from a debugging perspective, troubleshooting. The console feature is pretty handy. So you can basically go to the console here and type commands, and this is the actual console of the Zen server. So you're on it right now.
So there's no real reason for something like PuTTY with this, as long as you have access to Zen Center.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to run PuTTY. PuTTY's built into it, so pretty handy. You can undock it or dock it. The commands, full screen, very handy.
Then, of course, performance and logs are pretty much the same thing that we saw above. Can you create maybe a new VM? I know, the new pool, you've talked about that. Storage, you sort of showed us that. But can you go ahead and create or just walk us through, maybe not actually create the VM, but walk us through the wizard?
Yeah, sure. So let's go to the training pool level and create a new virtual machine by selecting New. Any templates that you have here, you can turn a virtual machine into a template by stopping it and converting it into a template. And basically, you can select, Windows or Linux and follow through the wizard here. Again, here, when you're creating a new VM, you can select the ISO tab. And again, you'll see your ISOs automatically appear. You don't have to go hunt for them and figure out what the name is and where they are. They're right there in the repository.
Very cool. Really simple. That's one of the things, I must admit, I'm not a fan of VMware. I'm constantly looking for my darn ISOs and configuring those. So I really like that feature. That's pretty neat.
So similar to VMware, it'll dynamically choose what host to start on when it starts it. It's not a predetermined home, or you can select a server to go to start it on. Well,
that's actually an interesting feature right there. Can you talk a little bit more about the choose server dynamically? Are you basically saying for, again, those of us or those of our listeners out there and watchers that might not be familiar with either VMware or XenSource or any virtualization, just starting to get into it, what does that mean? Does it go out and look at the server and say, this guest will best perform on this host? And if so, can you maybe talk about some of the criteria it uses for that?
Yeah, so exactly. It will go out and look at the resources at the given time at the Zen servers and basically, from a memory perspective and from a CPU perspective, see what the utilization of that Zen server is, and it'll automatically start it on the host with the most free available resources. So similar type of concept like VMware, but so they're using some of that underlying technology and architecture, and they'll expand on that. It's just a matter of time.
Now, is this a feature that comes with the freebie, or is this an enterprise only? And also, at the same time, I would imagine we require centralized storage for this one. This is not something you can just do with your local disks, local storage, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. You're going to need to have a minimum of 2 servers.
Well, that's a very neat little feature there. So
we'll actually get into that. We'll stop a VM. We'll watch it go into the middle of the pool, and we'll start it up and watch it dynamically stick it on a host. So yeah, similar again to VMware, you can select the number of CPUs. What's interesting about Zen is you can actually allocate more CPUs than you physically have. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe for testing an application to see if you're writing an application to double check that multi-threading is working correctly. Yeah, you wouldn't want to use this in a production perspective, but you can physically allocate up to 8 virtual CPUs in a guest operating system. So that's one of the things, because current kernel, version 4 of Zen, was rewritten to 64-bit. That was one of the advantages over VMware version 3, that they were still using a 32-bit kernel, and they were limited to, I think, 4 virtual CPUs, and limited on the RAM too. So Zen's kind of come a long way when they rewrote that to 64-bit, the hypervisor. So yeah, just select next, and it'll automatically default to shared storage. You can use local storage or another volume on the storage. It'll automatically add all interfaces. Typically, you'd want to go and delete and just have the one interface that you want, and then you can select whether you want a VLAN or internal network.
Very cool. And we're ready to basically start our VM, but of course, are you going to?
And there's your progress bar.
Excellent. Okay, Chester, that's pretty cool. Very quick. And so we created a VM, and now what would you like to show us next?
Yeah, so from a virtual machine level, we have a bunch of things we can do similar to VMware. When you right-click the system, you can shut down the system. The shutdown is a graceful shutdown. Obviously, you need to have the tools installed for this to work correctly. A suspend will suspend the system, so it'll basically save the memory to disk and pause the system so you can start and stop it. I find reboots are typically, actually shutting down is faster sometimes than suspend. So I don't typically suspend unless I really want to save something in the middle of a progress. Reboot's pretty self-explanatory. The migrate is the Zen motion feature, and we'll get into that a little later. Forced shutdown is a forced shutdown, which is like pulling the plug on the back of a server, and a forced reboot is a forced reboot, similar to the hard reboot.
Just kill all the processes and reboot the box.
Yeah, so it's going to be a hard one. So from the virtual machine level, you get a quick overview of what the usage is, CPU, memory. From the general tab, you can change the server host name. We got this server's name as the IP address just to make it easy for the demo. OS, Windows 2003. Virtualization optimized, that basically means that tools are installed. You can change the VM memory, CPUs. So we're at the virtual machine level. The storage level, here's disk 0. You can basically type whatever you want as a description in the name. You can type cdisk, host name, whatever. You can add multiple disks. You can select the CD-ROM. From a networking perspective, here's where you can see the IP address of the physical virtual machine, which is kind of handy from a diagnostics perspective.
What's that limit K bytes?
Similar to VMware, where you can actually throttle bandwidth. If you wanted to throttle the amount of bandwidth a virtual machine could send, you could do that.
Very cool, very cool. So do a little bit of bandwidth throttling might be used in many different scenarios. So very cool, very cool.
And I didn't talk about it back at that general side, but there was also a slider for CPU priority.
Oh, very cool.
The console level here, you can see that it's much like VMware, where you can control the virtual machine. One different thing, so you can undock the console, and now you can see that it's in a floating window.
Very
and
cool.
You can move around, and you can redock it.
That is very cool.
The other interesting thing is it allows you the ability to switch to Rdp mode.
Very, very cool.
Which, definitely recommend when administering a virtual machine, unless you have to be on the console, we definitely prefer to be configuring and administering via Rdp. It's a lot more efficient, quicker, and less bandwidth intensive.
You bet. Oh, that's very neat. That is very neat. I like that undock full screen and switch to Rdp mode. That's very impressive.
Yeah, so the Zen control deletes there. The CD-ROM's right here again. You can select the CDs, DVDs. So, very simple, very straightforward. On that note, when I went to the first Zen class, 3.0, I was very surprised because, back over a year ago when I did that, I didn't really know what Zen was or kind of had misconceptions of what Zen was. And I think that maybe still exists out there in the industry of, people kind of thought, much like I did, Zen is something that either you install on top of a Linux operating system like Red Hat. It's its own hypervisor that comes on a CD, and you load it, and it's ready to go. And you don't have to pre-install operating system. It's not like a GSX or a VMware server.
Oh, this is full-blown ESX. I mean, if the easiest way to say that is this is VMware ESX, but it's, of course, XenSource's version of ESX.
Exactly.
It's a bare metal virtualization hypervisor.
Exactly. And both companies, VMware and Zen, have announced integrated versions, VMware VI3i and Zen integrated. And, both are going to run on basically, USB type key fob in these servers. If you open up some of the new HP servers, you'll see basically a USB slot in the server on the motherboard. Basically, you can plug in a USB key fob and load, Zen on it or VMware on it if you want to run without the hard drive. But you're going to see Dell and HP shipping those here either this year or next year. People buying servers with Zen and VMware loaded up, ready to go.
You bet. That is very, very cool. Very cool. Well, Chaz, we like to keep these things somewhat short and sweet. I want to definitely be respectful of our audience out there, and I know that everyone needs to get back to their jobs, but hopefully you guys have been enjoying the overview of XenSource. And I'm definitely not kicking Chaz out yet, so if you're enjoying this, don't worry. But at the same time, I would like to move over to maybe some of the advanced features and definitely make sure we get to Zen Motion before our time runs out. So, Chaz, let's go ahead and move on. Are we ready for Zen Motion, or is there anything else you'd like to show before that?
No, I think this is a good intro into Zen. We've kind of covered everything that we need to, and so we'll get into Zen Motion here, much similar to VMware vMotion. Prior to doing this, just want to let everyone know, similar to vMotion, there's some fundamental requirements. You want to have similar servers, similar CPUs, CPU families. You should have shared storage, NFS, iSCSI, as well as gigabit Ethernet to be able to do these Zen Motions and vMotions.
Perfect. Just out of curiosity, Chaz, I know I'm very interested in virtualized storage right now and some of these iSCSI targets that are out there. Which one are we currently using in your demo?
So for this demo, we're actually running on NFS, and we're just using some NFS software from a vendor. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but from a quick demo perspective, I found using Data Core is pretty good for proof of concepts, as well as a company called StarWind, and we'll make sure that we publish those URLs available for people. StarWind is pretty interesting because it's iSCSI in basically 5 minutes. You can basically turn an XP box into an iSCSI target. And similar to VMware, where you're encapsulating VMs in files, you can actually create little images for iSCSI targets and basically have an iSCSI image. So kind of interesting. Maybe we'll do webinar on that and kind of give an overview of some of those tools.
You bet. And you made a statement for demo purposes, and I just want to clarify that for everyone out there listening. There are some companies out there like DataCore, Left Hand Networks, and those are not just for demo purposes only. Those are full enterprise iSCSI solutions, and they work rather well. Absolutely. In fact, DataCore is just an amazing solution that can do some really intelligent caching and a bunch of other stuff. And it's a great way also to take some of those servers that you have and that you're no longer using because you're consolidating and turn these into storage boxes, because storage is going to be extremely important. Not every one of us can go out there and buy a big refrigerator unit, as I like to call them, a big expensive SAN. So they're a wonderful way of getting SAN iSCSI or SAN style support without the extreme cost. So let's move forward and get into the Zen Motion stuff, Chaz.
Yeah, so yeah, let's finish the Zen Motion off. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to start off by selecting this server here, and you can see that it's a Windows 2003 server. We have run ipconfig, which shows that this is 101, so we are on this server. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. You right-click the server, you select migrate, you select the host you want to migrate it to. So we're going to move it from 1435 to 2970. So we're going to select it. And you can see it's turning yellow here. And it's migrating right now. It's in the process. That'd take about 30 seconds or something. You'll notice that we had the CD-ROM attached so that it actually popped up when it auto-connected that. We'll just exit that. The next thing I wanted to show you with that vMotion is we'll do something a little more advanced.
Yeah, it seemed almost too good to be true, Chad.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what we'll do here is I've RDP'd to that server here at 101, keeping the naming conventions consistent for everyone. And what we've done here is I'm on 101. I'm pinging the default gateway, so you can see that we are on the network. We have Task Manager up here, so we can keep an eye on these things and see what happens.
Hey, Chaz, let's make this even a little bit more complicated. Do you think you can maybe peg the CPU to 100% and see what it's like when we're running on a fully loaded server? In fact, not just a fully loaded server, but a pegged server.
So we'll do both. We'll do a vMotion now, and then we'll go back and we'll peg the processor, and we'll do a vMotion.
Perfect.
So let's initialize the vMotion by selecting Migrate. We'll quickly bring back the screen here. You can see that it's on the left-hand side that it's yellow. You can see a little blip here in the milliseconds, and went 1, 2, 6 milliseconds. We never dropped a packet. Our latency got a little bad, but we never dropped a packet during that move.
Nor did we drop an RDP session which is quite impressive.
Exactly. So, we could have kept on typing. There might have been a little pause in the typing, but let's peg the processor here now. If you ever want to peg a processor, basically bring the calculator into scientific mode and type 9 a few times and press end quote, and you'll quickly peg your processor. So let's move it again back from 1435 to 2970. And we'll go back to our RDP session, and you can see our processor still pegged here, climbing along, and we're migrating. And we'll just watch it. We had a little more of a delay this time, 45 milliseconds, but again, we never dropped our session. We never lost any data, per se. And
very impressive.
We're still rocking and rolling.
Okay, so that's really cool, Chaz. That's very impressive. Didn't even skip a beat within an RDP session, which for all the Citrix guys out there and terminal services guys, that's very handy stuff. Well, one of the things that we always think about when we think of vMotion from VMware is the fact that if, let's say, in your case scenario here, you have XenServer 2970, if that machine, someone just unplugged it or the hardware crashed, and then all those VMs would automatically fail over to, in your case, XenServer 1435. Is that the case with XenSource XenCenter here?
Yeah, not today. They're going to be working on that feature. Basically, if we were to, if that server was to power off, that server would actually be powered on. We could write some script to detect that a server failed and we could power it off. But basically, today out of the box there's nothing to automatically power that server on if it was powered off. But I expect to see some of those features come early next year.
Okay, so that's very cool, Chaz. Very cool. I really appreciate this. Well, we are right at the very end of our time allotment for today, but of course I always want to make sure you've managed to get everything you wanted out. So is there anything else that you would like to show us really quick?
Yeah, I'm going to show one more thing, which is the dynamic virtual machine startup feature. We're going to quickly force shut down this box. As you can see, it's off right now, right? Our RDP session here should be dead in the water, which it is. So we'll just kill it here. So we've basically put it at the pool level. You can see that these virtual machines are no longer assigned to a virtual machine, and we can basically say start, and it'll dynamically, or we can set it to start, and we can choose which one we want it to start on. So if we just select Start here, it'll automatically choose one, and it basically chose the 2970 for whatever reason.
I take it 2970 has a lot more resources, probably beefier box, right?
Yeah, possibly.
Hey, I saw one thing real quick. Can you flip down to Windows Server 2003, the one down there, and right-click on that for me? I saw something there that said Export as Backup. Can you just real briefly, what does that mean, Chaz?
Yeah, so basically the export as backup basically means that you can actually back up a full virtual machine to a file and import it and export it. So I could back this up to an image file and import it over to a DR site.
Very cool.
It basically creates a single file for that machine.
Very cool, very cool. So it's just sort of a little built-up backup solution, which is built-in backup solution.
And as well, one thing we didn't cover was the templates. You can once a virtual machine is powered down, you'll notice that you can convert it to a template by clicking Convert to Template, and from now on, that machine's a template. So very, very straightforward.
Well, perfect. Well, perfect. Chaz, we are right at our time allotment for today, so I really appreciate your time today. I definitely would like to have you back on DABCC-TV, and we'll show off some more of the advanced features of XenSource and a bunch of this other technology that's out there today in the virtualization and server-based computing worlds and all that jazz. So, again, Chaz, I definitely really thank you for your time, and I'll give you the last word.
Thank you very much, Doug. And, if the guests feel free to send requests to either myself or Doug, future maybe videos that they'd like to see or products they'd like to cover, and we'll take those requests and prioritize them.
You bet, you bet. So thank you so much for that, Chaz. Yes, if anyone, as DABCC is just starting out, DABCC-TV is just starting out, if anyone has any suggestions, please just go ahead and email me at dbrown@dabcc.com. Again, that's dbrown@dabcc.com. And, of course, if anyone would like to be on DABCC-TV, definitely email me also, and we will see if we can bring you on the show and hear what you have to say and see what you have to show. So on that note, again, Chaz, I really appreciate your time. And until next time, thank you so much.
Thanks, Doug.